We're gonna do a video in my closet today because it's just that sort of day. I transitioned about 4.5 years ago, and over the span of that time I've been asked a lot of different questions. But one of the ones I've been asked the most is how I dealt with parents and that whole situation. At the end of the day, the answer comes down to the fact that every parent is a special snowflake. You have to deal with your parents in your own way because they're going to be different from mine and different from somebody else's. But I think one thing that not a lot of people, especially not a lot of trans teens, do is really take the time to understand their parents' position on everything. I mean, first you need to realize that I think at the end of the day, every parent and really every adult has some degree of cynicism in their brain always. I mean, I'm a freshman in college, and when I look at juniors and seniors in high school, I can go, oh, look at those immature children. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're wearing or what they're doing. Everything they think is stupid because I'm older. I definitely remember being a senior and thinking that way about juniors, and being a junior and thinking that way about sophomores, and being a sophomore and thinking that way about freshmen, and being a freshman and thinking about that way, thinking that about people don't like younger people, usually, for the most part. My point, which I think is there somewhere, being if you take that mentality that you have towards people who are younger than you in school and realize that somebody over the age of, let's say, 30 has 30 years worth of people to dislike and 30 years of changes to not want to adjust to. And that includes gendery stuff. You could be the kindest, the coolest, the hippest adult in the world, doesn't matter. The more years you accumulate throughout your life, the more things you are just going to have this dislike for kind of buried in the back of your mind. And so remembering that that is one obstacle that your parents are trying to get through when they're trying to accept your transition is very important. Secondly, and I want to do a whole other video on this at some point because I think it is a huge topic, there's that concept of grief that parents do have to go through. Because at the end of the day, we are all victims of the gender binary, not just trans folks. When you were born and your gender was decided, whether they like it or not, your parents got this idea wedged into their brains about how your life was going to turn out. And at least from what I've picked up, a lot of parents can be very sentimental people. That means they can be attached to very symbolic and little things, like the idea of teaching their son to shave, or buying their daughter's wedding dress. Think of birthdays when you were little, and you would get really, really excited about, let's just say, the birthday cake. And your birthday was a big deal. It was this momentous occasion, and it took a lot of planning, a lot of work, and so sometimes those little things just meant a hell of a lot to you, even if they weren't that important, like your birthday cake. And you decided that you wanted a yellow cake with chocolate frosting, which is my personal favorite, and you had it set in stone that on your birthday, on your special day, you were going to be delivered a yellow cake with chocolate frosting, and you would eat it, and it would be delicious, and everything you had hoped for and imagined, and all of your dreams would come true. And then your birthday comes, and you get red velvet cake. And you don't know what the hell it is. You weren't expecting it. You didn't see this coming. You could still picture the yellow cake with chocolate frosting in the front of your mind. It was beautiful cake. It was really, really delicious. You were really looking forward to it. And you look up, and the cake beholder says, sorry, we can only get you this red velvet cake. This is what you are presented with. I know it's not what you thought you were going to have, but it's still cake, and it's still delicious. Now, of course, since you are a little child, once you take that first bite into that velvety cake, you'll realize that everything's okay. It's still delicious. It's still wonderful. You still have a great birthday. You remember it for years and years. You take out little Polaroids, little photos. You look at it and you go, that was a good birthday. That was a good cake. But for those first few moments, you're going to be surprised and disappointed because it wasn't what you expected and it wasn't what you planned for. Because we are human beings and we are drilled with anxiety and nervousness and stress, plans are very important to us, and when they go wrong, we go a little bit wrong. So trans teens and trans kids and trans people in general, please just remember that everyone is a little cynical, especially your parents. And grief and disappointment, although it's not your fault, because you looked everywhere for that chocolate and yellow cake, you tried to make it, but it just wasn't working, you didn't have the right ingredients, all you could get was the red velvet. You worked so hard, and one day they will like it, and they will appreciate that cake. But right now, they're just missing the one they thought they were gonna have. Which honestly isn't that great. I mean, yellow and chocolate is pretty boring and pretty pretty dull. I mean, I might like it, but there's nothing that special about it. Red velvet says something special. That says you worked a little hard. That says you put some thought into that delicious dessert. And parents, try not to be so cynical. And your children are not birthday cakes. And it's not your goddamn birthday. So, yeah.